Yes, hello, it's that time of the week again as we continue our plunge through the Rugby World Cup in land of the Rising Scrum. We've completed pools A and B over the last few weeks. If you haven't heard any of them, you can listen back to offtheball.com/podcast. From there, just click into our rugby section. And you can also watch these back on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/offtheball. And just a reminder, our rugby coverage on Off the Ball is brought to you by Vodafone. Team of us, everyone in. So we moved on to Pool C. First up, we're going to look at England, still the only Northern Hemisphere country to have won the Rugby World Cup when they did so in Australia in 2003. They were back in the decider in 2007, but their last two tournaments have not been good. Beaten quarter-finalists in 2011 before the disaster of 4 years ago, 2015, failing to get out of their pool when hosting the tournament. Now, joining me on the line to chat about England, I'm delighted to say welcome our latest World Cup winner onto the show, a crucial part of the side that lifted the trophy down under in 2003. Neil Back, thanks a million for joining us.
It's fantastic to join you, and I can't believe it's been nearly 16 years since we lifted the World Cup, and hopefully this year another Northern Hemisphere will be able to experience that feeling.
I mean, obviously, from a personal point of view, I imagine you would want England to be winning it. Would you kind of go along with that, though, as you kind of hinted, like you kind of, if it's not going to be England, at the very least, you might want to see a Northern Hemisphere taking it?
I genuinely think, it's there for a Northern Hemisphere team to win. Look at world rankings, and we feature in the top four with Wales, Ireland, and England. So I don't think that's ever been the case before. So we're right up there, performing well, and obviously Wales had an incredible season, Ireland a bit of a dip, sort of England, we know they can win, so it'll be an interesting World Cup, and genuinely, obviously I'd love England to win it, but if not, a Northern Hemisphere team would get my vote.
Now, obviously, there is still a lot of rugby to be played. The Southern Hemisphere teams of the Rugby Championship coming up, and the Northern Hemisphere teams are kind of in their pre-season preparation. So it's that time of the year when you're prepping for the World Cup rugby match, warm-up matches, I should say, in a few weeks. It's been a short summer holiday. You can't win a World Cup here, but I'm sure you can tell us that you can definitely lose one if you don't prepare right at this time of the year.
Yeah, I think the Southern Hemisphere clubs with that championship, it's a great sort of builder into a World Cup because of the quality of the teams that are in it, although sort of New Zealand are number one and the other two are outside the sort of top places. But for Northern Hemisphere clubs, it's really the best chance to get your team fully prepared. You can get over those minor injuries because the only time you get a decent amount of time with your squad to build the momentum. You get sort of normally a couple of weeks to prepare for a Six Nations or an autumn series at best, whereas a World Cup you've got 3 months. You know what I mean? So it is about preparation, and that 1% might be the difference between success and failure, and not winning it is failure. So only one team can be successful this year. Like I say, love it to be England on top of the cricket success, but looking through and charting my predictions, then maybe England might not go all the way, and it may be an incredible Irish team that have beaten the current world champions over the last couple of years, both home and away.
Looking back to your own experiences of these pre-World Cup training camps, like just how different are they from your standard club pre-season? And I'm talking in particular, like working with Clive Woodward, who would have been well known for intensity on the training pitch, meticulous preparation. How punishing a time is this for the players getting ready for a World Cup?
It's absolutely grueling. The difference between good and great teams is the mentality. So you've got to just put your heart and soul into it. There's a lot of sacrifice. My abiding memory of sort of the final whistle of the World Cup after we'd won it was, all that sacrifice, time away from family, friends, not going out, maybe partying as much, was all worthwhile. If we had not won it, it would have been devastating, really, because to be successful, there's a lot of sacrifice, but it makes it all worthwhile, you know. So any of those teams out there now, or players that may be listening to it, like, just dig in, give it all, and it is all worth it.
When Clive would have come in the late 1990s, obviously there was a strong core of that team that stayed around for a good number of years as well, that would have been around from the amateur days of rugby. Yeah. How much of a culture shock was it when this guy came in? And as we all know, he was extremely innovative. He pretty much tore up the old playbook of, well, this is what we used to do before. This is exactly what we're not going to do anymore. And, you know, he completely turned this into a professional game. It's probably something that coaching now, it's seen as completely normal, but I'm sure back in the late 90s when people were set in their ways, I'd probably say it was pretty much a massive culture shock.
Well, it was. I mean, Clive was the first England manager in the pro era. When he took on the England job, I think England were ranked 5th in the world. You know, we're beating some of the best teams in the world occasionally and have some heroic wins, but weren't beating those teams on a consistent basis. And, you know, I'd been lucky enough to play under 2 previous England managers, but whereas they, in the early weeks, talked about with what we've got, i.e. the players and staff, how are we going to win next week, his thought process was the end game, and the end game was becoming world champions, becoming the number 1 ranked team in world rugby and beating the best teams, not occasionally but consistently, and that's what he achieved. So he didn't come in and dictate to the group that he took over. He was very smart because he inherited, you know, 5 or 6 guys that had captained England. There was, I don't know, 6 or 7 guys that captained their club side. So there was a lot of experience there. There was a lot of good leadership. And he basically gave the players and staff ownership of their destiny. So instead of saying, this is how we're going to do it, he asked us, how are we going to do it? And as long as we come up with, you know, key performance indicators that he was happy with, that felt we could achieve those goals, then he signed it off. But so we could never say, if we failed, oh, it's the manager's fault, it's Clive's fault. We could never say that, because everything we did from the moment we left our home to meeting up, training, playing and returning home, we dictated and agreed what those standards should be. And
that was the black book, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, in the end, there was about 10,000 words in that. But, you know, we didn't need to read it because we'd all signed it off ourselves. We'd agreed to those standards. I mean, that black book was good for when new players come into the squad because, you know, very quickly you can say, look, this is how we operate. Look in the black book. You didn't need to read it. You read chunks of it. People demonstrated in their actions how to behave, you know, in every incident and what the standards were, what we needed to achieve in game. I mean, I personally headed up the defence sort of structure, and we, you know, to win a game, it was very clear, indicated what you needed to achieve to do it. And we started achieving them, and then we made them even harder for us to achieve. And that's what lots of different leaders in different areas had the responsibility of doing. But at the end of the day, Clive put that framework in place. So it was down to the players. We made it work because they were our rules.
As the years went by then, and you come into 2003, it is obviously working because you are now the team to beat. You've been on an incredible unbeaten run, Grand Slam champions. were you feeling the pressure of all eyes on you coming into the tournament? And I imagine there might have been an element maybe as well of, for a core group of you, the older guys in the team, you had been around a couple of World Cups. It's now or never, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, and a number of those players, it was my third, and I knew it was going to be my last World Cup. So I've been privileged to play club and international rugby and with the British and Irish Lions and won everything you can win apart from a World Cup. So it was the last piece of the jigsaw for us. I mean, you say sort of Clive's story and that team, you know, was over 6 or 7 years, and he didn't start particularly well because although we were winning games, we didn't have that consistency. You know, we lost 4 sort of Grand Slams, 3 on the final game going through. But from every one of those, we learnt a new lesson, and we took that forward. We didn't make the same mistakes again, and that was a part of the process. I remember that first championship we lost to Wales at Wembley, Scott Gibbs. You know, in '99, horrendous. '99 World Cup, De Boer in the quarter-final. 5 drop goals, never happened before, never happened since. Scotland '99, Ireland, mad cow disease, postponed game. And then 2002, third round against France. But from that loss in 2002, the third game in the Six Nations, we went on a run and basically said to ourselves, if we can't win a Grand Slam and beat the best sides in the Northern Hemisphere on a consistent basis, and that was 5 games over 7 weeks, how are we going to beat the world's best player teams that are ranked higher than in the world rankings 7 games over 6 weeks? So we said, going into that 2003 Six Nations, look, if we can't win this with a number of games at home, how are we going to go on the road and win 7 games on the bounce away? But we went into that 2003 Six Nations having crucially beat New Zealand, Australia and South Africa at home in the autumn. We went on then to win all the games in the Six Nations 2003 with the last game away from home against a very good Irish team. And then to build on that confidence, we went away and played New Zealand and Australia away. So we'd beaten them at home in the autumn 2002, but we went away and beat them both on the road. And the warm-up games for us then were against Wales, a couple of games against France ahead of the World Cup. And we played France home and away. And game 15 on that run, we lost by a point out in France. It was a squad team, you know, but the record book shows it was lost. We lost that game 17-16. It grounded the squad. It, give us purpose. Not that the squad needed grounding, but I felt it was crucial. If we went into that World Cup having won 16 games out of 16, won a Grand Slam, etc., beat New Zealand, Australia, South Africa home and away, then there may have been a bit of complacency.
Yeah, you almost need to kind of remember what the feeling of losing is like.
Yeah, so we'll never know now, but it happened, and I felt it was important, just to bring us down to earth, give us the reality, and it really focused it. And going into the World Cup, we had a reasonably tough group. South Africa, I think they were highly ranked team and a good team at the time, and that was our main sort of obstacle in that pool stage. Is we played Georgia first up, and really put a good showing in that day. South Africa, who nilled them with tries, beat a good South African team. Samoa, that was a tough game. That was a physical game.
Yeah.
We needed that back-to-back physical games. The final game was against Uruguay. In those pool games, our defence was tough. It was physical. We conceded 2 tries in 4 games. And we scored, I don't know, a hatful. What did we score? 34 tries, something like that. So we were scoring tries and we were stopping and denying the opposition tries.
And then you come to then you come to that Wales game, and that's when it all of a sudden, for the first time, it looked like you were a little bit rattled. 10-3 down at half time. Or the first seeds of doubt starting to set in, that you're kind of wondering, oh God, maybe things have been going a little bit too well. And I was reading, it's kind of been said that at half time it was Martin Johnson that just took over completely and just led it from there. Like what was said in there at that stage? What were the feelings going in at half time and then coming back out onto the pitch 15 minutes later?
Well, I think a part of that was, our tough game in the pool was South Africa. Okay, so we trained physically hard before the World Cup, through the World Cup, until South Africa. We had a really light week, and it paid dividends. We were fresh going into that. We sort of upped it again for those last 2 pool games and really put ourselves under a lot of pressure. In that, we could go into the latter stages probably not having to do as much time out on the field, because you lose your fitness after you detrain after a couple of weeks of doing nothing. So we because we'd beaten, and this is just how it was, we'd beaten Wales in a pre-World Cup warm-up game. I don't know what the score was, but we beat them by about 40 points. I'm trying to think what the score is. So maybe that was it, because a month before we'd beaten them by 40-odd points. You know what I mean? I'm trying to remember what the score is. But anyway, it was a lot. So I think, and we trained hard and stuff, that was a part of it. But what we did show in that game, I think, was complete calmness and trust in one another. We come into the dressing room at half-time. I mean, Clive was very good at not saying a lot, honestly. And that may sound strange. He was impactful what he said. He let the leaders and the leadership group talk. And Jonny was probably the greatest of all at not saying a lot. He just needed to look round the room. We just needed to look into each other's eyes. And we knew what we had to do. And I suppose what the management did, coolly, was give Jonny a bit of support by bringing Mike Katz outside centre and moving Will out. And that just relieved a bit of the pressure on him. As defence leader, that was disappointing for me because Wales scored 3 tries. We only scored 1 in that game. But we saw it out. But I think that demonstrated to that group that under a lot of pressure, we just kept calm. We knew what we had to do. We knew what we needed to sort out. We were trying to play in the wrong areas of the field. And through the leadership group, obviously captained by Martin, the rest is history. We ran out 28-17, I think, in the end.
Yeah.
With a wobbly first half, but an assured, confident second half, which gave us a lot of confidence.
And then France in the semi-final, no tries in that game, but it was a comfortable victory. It was 24 points all from the boot of Jonny Wilkinson as well. It was classic cup rugby, really, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, don't say there no tries. I know I banged on about this, but my opposite number, Betson, scored a try for France, which I'm not happy about. But I am happy because he's a nice bloke. But yeah, look, England, it England went out there to score tries, 100%.
Yeah.
If someone is cheating to stop you and give you penalties, you take the points. Because I look back to that Wales defeat way back at Wembley when we lost 32-31 and Gibbsy went in at the end. We were 6 points ahead in that game. We had a penalty opportunity, and the decision was to go for the corner, to go for a line out and a drive and a try. We failed. We lost that line out. They went up the other end, scored 5 points. Jenko never misses, kicks the points. We lose by a point. Do you know what? That game we learned how to build a score. So 3-6-9, the opposition have to score twice. So it was that game was, we wanted to score tries, but they were denying it and giving penalties away. So we'll take the points. 3-6-9. I think it was 5 penalties and 3 drop goals in that game. I might be wrong, but yeah, 8 off the boot of Jonny, but they all count. But we wanted to score tries, but they denied us, so we just took it. But I think that was an emphatic win. It was I think everyone knew then that we were there for business. And what I admired after that semi-final was no one celebrated. Honestly, it was glum. It was, because, like I said earlier on in this conversation, success in a World Cup is about winning it. Everything else is failure. So the big test, the winning or losing, was next week. And compared to the other semi-final, where Australia obviously beat New Zealand, they were whooping and hollering at the end of the game as if they'd won the whole thing. And that gave me, and I know a lot of the other players, there's a lot of heart, because all their emotion and energy, physically and emotionally, was put into that semi-final against New Zealand. I think when I saw it, I personally thought, right, they're gone. That was their final. So next week, we just have to rock up and do what we do. We beat them home and away. You know, we've now won 20 games out of 21. 22 games out of 23. 21 out of 22 going into the World Cup final. So, we're beating everyone home and away. We were confident we were going to win that game, because there was no celebration after France. It was a job well done. Let's get in the dressing room, shower off, and prepare for next week.
And then the final comes around, Australia, in Australia. I'm sure if there's ever a bunch of fans that are happy to remind you where you are and who you're up against, it's the Australian fans in a World Cup final in Australia.
Yeah, I'm smiling now, because yeah, we had lots of Australian support outside our hotel every night, trying to do a job for Australia to give us lack of sleep. But we also had a lot of English fans sorting them out in a polite way, taking them off for a beer. No, Australian fans, they're very passionate. You just look at the cricket, the Ashes coming up. It's going to be wonderful, but what they are is good losers as well, and that's what they were going to be that day. But yeah, the World Cup final was, I think, I personally felt invincible there. I think the squad felt confident and invincible as well. We had some really painful losses over the journey with Clive. We'd corrected certain things and learned from some painful defeats. And we put a run together. So 21 wins out of 22. The only one we lost was that came to France by a point. So we just needed to do what we did. And a poignant moment for me in that World Cup was walking out onto the stadium, because Jono always led the team out wherever he did, and before we went out into the cold run, he'd always turn round and look at the players and say a final few words, battle cry, as we go out. In that game, he turned round, looked round at the players, and didn't say a word, and walked out onto the pitch. And I thought at the time, this was strange. I thought he'd lost it, you know what I mean, in his biggest game.
Yeah.
But I sort of caught up with him a couple of weeks later and asked him about it. And he said, look, Becky, I looked round into the players' eyes and knew we were ready. I didn't need to say anything. For me, that was the best bit of leadership I've ever experienced in sport or business, because he knew that there's a lot of white noise from captains, coaches. You know, it's detail that's important, keeping calm and cool. He didn't need to say anything because he knew we were ready. So that was really impactful to me. I mean, the game itself, we got off to, Australia got off to a brilliant start, didn't they? Crossfield kick.
Takiri,
6'4" against Jace Robinson, 5'8". There's only going to be one winner. What I want to know, and I've never asked an Australian this that played at that World Cup, why did they not do that again in the rest of the game?
Yeah.
Why did they not do that? Because, look, that's no disrespect to Jason Robinson, incredible player. But, 6'4", crossfield kick. I think Latham put it across. Brilliant kick. Never did it again in the game.
When you saw it at the moment, are you thinking, oh my God, they're just going to be dropping ball after ball in on top of Jason now for the rest of the match?
Well, you're thinking about the next job, so you don't pay much time. I mean, what was great about that squad is we had a team called Next Job, and that was basically, you know, forget about what's happened because you can't do anything about it. Try not to let it happen again, but learn from that and get on with the next job. Because if you dwell on that, if Jason had dwelled on, oh my God, I've just let it try in the first 5 minutes of the World Cup final, he wouldn't have scored the try at the back end of that first half that he did. And if everyone had got into Jason, he wouldn't have felt empowered and strong to go on and do what he did. So he'd benefit from that. Obviously, Wilco kicked a few penalties, and then we had, I think it was about 20 or 25 minutes. We did a lovely move, and I smile now. We wouldn't be smiling if we'd have lost, but...
Are you talking about Ben Kay, are you?
Yeah, Ben Kay dropped the ball over the line. But when you look at it, and I've only watched the game in entirety once, and that was on the 10th anniversary when I spoke at an event looking at the game. But when you look at it, you know, you can't blame Ben, because 9 times out of 10, Matt Dawson wouldn't have passed that ball. So Ben wasn't expecting it. And Dawson could have just done it and gone, and he'd have scored anyway. But anyway, so he lost that, and that was another poignant moment in that game, because again, dropping the ball over the line in a World Cup final, I mean, the score then was 6-5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could have been a different first half. We could have easily gone in 25-6 at half time, but it didn't happen. But again, no one dug in to Ben then. They patted him on the back. Next job, concentrate on your next job. You know, and he kept in the game. And that allowed him, right at the back end of the game, to make the call he did at the line-out. And I'll go on to that in a minute. I just must talk about the second half, because 14-5 at half-time, you know, could have been 25-5 quite easily. we destroy Australia in the scrum, and we lose the half 9-0. They Andre Watson, South African ref, saw it differently. He felt that Phil Vickery must be doing something wrong, because you can't dominate a scrum so much at that level. But anyway, and Latham goes and kicks a penalty in the last minute of the normal time to make it 14-all.
Yeah, and what's that like coming into the huddle at extra time when, essentially the trophy's been snatched from your hands 30 seconds ago? You were almost there, you were almost at the line, you almost had your hands on it. I would say most neutrals watching on would probably be going, okay, Australia have just nicked this right at the end here to bring it to extra time. You have to fancy them from here.
Yeah. Bear in mind, they won that second half 9-0 as well. So, but, if you look at just the score and the timeline, you'd think Australia were the dominant team. Well, they weren't, and they'll admit that. They weren't the dominant team. We just kept getting penalised. Anyway, it was quite amusing then, and I think, obviously, when you're on the pitch, you're sort of in control of your own destiny, because it's you doing things. From a coaching perspective, it must have been incredibly difficult, and bless him, Clive and Phil Lard, our defence coach, and Andy Robinson were all wanting to give input, and some of that input was poignant, like, don't give any penalties away, don't miss any tackles, play in their half of the field. I mean, yeah. So Jono sort of took over. We got in a huddle, and they sort of tried to enter that and add those comments. And to a man, I think we were looking around and thinking, no shit, you might have to bleep that out. But it was just calm. It was calm, because we knew we were playing well. We knew we were creating problems, and we felt in control. I mean, Johnny slipped out that huddle to practice some penalty kicks and drop goals. Yeah, because he knew what he had to do, just to keep his mind on the game. Extra time, I mean, we banged over an early penalty, second half of extra time, they bang over a penalty in the last minute again, and we're back to where we were at the end of 80. Really. And
then it's about getting the ball down the pitch and get it into the hands of Johnny.
Yeah, well, it was, but we were given a line out then about 38 metres out, 40 metres out. And this is what I referred to earlier about Ben Kay dropping the ball over the line. He was our line out leader, as a decision maker. Right, we've got a line out. Well, you've got a line out, Neil. 38 metres out, 40 metres out. Right, you've got in your line out, you want to secure possession for your team. Do you throw it to Martin Johnson at the front of the line out?
Yeah, straight up a two.
Do you throw it to yourself, line out leader, good exponent, or do you throw it to Mad Dog Moody, who's just come on for Richard Hill at the back of the line out with a midget Neil back behind him lifting? Right, where's your money?
You're probably thinking straight up Martin Johnson at two, but we all know it didn't turn out like that.
Exactly. So, Ben Kay, I put it down to the team ethics and values of next job mentality, keeping him in the game, keeping him smart, next job mentality, next job. Made the call, because Australia, like everyone else, thought they'd throw it to Jono at the front, or maybe Ben in the middle, but he called it to Lewis Moody. Steve Thompson, I mentioned Cheryl Calder, I coached, which was a more of a mental than a physical addition to the squad in terms of the mentality that we were doing. That was an extra edge. It was that extra 1%. I mean, Steve Thompson hit Lewis Moody, a fantastic lift from Neil back at the back, off the top, and the play for that was, I mean, it's no secret now, was zigzag. Basically, we aimed to weave our way between the 15s. So if the opposition give a penalty away, it's more kickable. First of all, we want to score a try, but if they deny that by cheating and give us a penalty, it's easier for Jonny to kick. Or we get in a position for a drop goal. And that was the play. So, straight off the top, and we didn't need to call that either. We just looked at each other. Some people, drew a zigzag in the air because we knew what we had to do, because we'd practiced that probably, 100 times over the last 3 or 4 years in training. Last minute, this is what we've got to do. And we score tries. Sometimes we got a penalty and Jonny will bang it over. Sometimes we dropped a goal. So it went straight off the top as play. Everyone knew what I had to do. It was all autonomous. No one had to call anything. We knew the play. It's off the top. Goes to Catty. Will Greenwood from outside centre would seal him off on the outside. I from the back of the line would seal him off on the inside. We get good ball there. Dorset at the base.
Little break.
Jonny's but Jonny's positioned himself into that drop goal position there. But we were too far out at that point. So the Australians were thinking that as well. So they were creeping offside. Dawes saw that, and being cool-headed that he is, he saw that, dummied, and he was through and made an extra 10, 15 metres, which was a difference. Dawes went to ground, so our best passer of the ball is on the ground. And we had 3, 4, 5 players that could play scrum half.
You jumped in there briefly, didn't you? Yeah, it looked like you were actually going to sling it back to Jonny at one point.
Look, listen, this is a team ethics. Clive picked a team where he picked the best players in every position and the next best player in every position, so everyone was slotting. I, as a part of my skill development, always went to kick with Jonny, because I kicked for every team that I played until I was 18, so I always used to field balls and knock them back over the post. That's why I'm the only English forward ever to drop a goal in a game, but that's another story. But also practice with the scrum half. When Nigel Melville back in the day come in and worked with the scrum half, so I always did that session, so I put myself in that position. And I did look round to Jonny in the pocket, but then some 6'7" English captain come blocking out the sunlight, and I thought I'll pass it to him. and people say that Jono made like 3 or 4 metres. He didn't. He made about 3 or 4 inches. But what it did do is it recycled Dawson into the 9 position, which on that field were the best passer of the ball, and Jonny into the pocket. And if you look at it, the Australians are all offside at that breakdown because they obviously knew the threat that Jonny posed, and not that we'd have got a penalty off Andre Watson that day. You couldn't buy one. And the rest is history, really. I mean, an accurate pass. Jonny caught it, put it between the poles. But again, like that semi-final win, no one then celebrates success. If you look at the players' eyes, they're all looking into the stadium. And that's not for their loved ones, for the busty blondes in the crowd. It's for the game clock.
Because there's still 30-odd seconds to go.
Well, yeah. When I looked at it, it was 22 seconds. So we've got 22 seconds to win the World Cup. So this, for me, is where the World Cup was won, in this 22 seconds.
And very quickly, we're actually running out of time a little bit here. Okay. So I'm going to bring us to, you do get the ball out of play, it's hoofed out into touch. and all of a sudden you're the world champions, and those years of sacrifice, the grueling pre-seasons, the constant sacrifice and getting yourself ready, it's all been worth it. What's it like?
Yeah, that was the overriding feeling. I mean, absolute relief. Obviously, you could see the joy in everyone's faces. My immediate thing was then to join the people who also made that sacrifice. My wife, sister-in-law and 2 kids were in the stadium. Olivia was 4 and my son Finn was 14 months. I went over and basically, within a minute, I'd found them in this 82,000-seater stadium. Took my daughter onto the pitch. She joined me on the stage, on the podium for the presentation. But also, Finley, who was 14 months at that time, wouldn't come with me because he didn't know who I was. And that was a part of it that hit home to me. Because most of his life I'd been away, and when he was there, the rest of it he was asleep. So that hit home. But it made it all worthwhile, and we knew we were champions, certainly for the next 4 years. But that would go down as a great moment. 37 years after England lifted the World Cup, and as Clive, I believe, wrote somewhere, the score was 20 points to 17, and also a 37-year spread, 37-point spread. Sorry.
And since then, does this, the recall you obviously have you had to watch back these games a lot to kind of pick out the moments, or are these memories kind of still vivid in the memory?
Like I said earlier, I've literally watched the game in completion once. I've seen the drop goal many times, as we all have, because it's an iconic moment. But it was more than that. It was about a team that came together, that sacrificed, that give for one another, and very special memories. I mean, if you see any of those guys in the squad, you don't have to say a word. Just a look and a glance says it all. Some really fond memories, and hopefully, like I said, a Northern Hemisphere team. Hopefully, it's England. But I must admit, this morning I've looked through the permutations. I think the top 4 ranked teams will be in the semi-finals. And it's not just because I'm on your show. I think Ireland could go on and do it.
Okay, well, hopefully you're right anyway. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will hope so as well. Neil Back, thanks a million for joining us this afternoon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.